Okie dokie. So, welcome back to Becoming CEO of Your Career. We're using the success framework to go through your goals today. And so, this is a culmination of everything we've done over the last why and the what sessions we've been going through. And this is one of my favorite parts of the program because we've done lots of activities, lots of reflection. You will have been taking some action. And as a result, we're about halfway through. And so, really, everything from values, vision, purpose, legacy, brand, your career model, your value proposition, all of this stuff feeds right into goals because it's with your goals. You can say where you're going, you can say what you're going to get where you get there. And then we can figure out, well, what are the strategies and tactics and habits to make it happen? And so, probably what you've done is you've figured out your purpose statement, something like to connect with people so that together we can learn, be better, and succeed. You know your values. You've got a vision for me to work daily with individuals to help them grow their personal and business capability. And you've figured out what you're going to leave behind. You likely have a good idea of what your brand promise is, like what you're here to give people, what you guarantee if you don't succeed, and figure out what your personal secret is. And that will have allowed you to come up with some sort of a pitch when it comes to the value you deliver. I'm also guessing we've got the foundations for your career model, which is using the Gazelle's business model canvas. And so this is where we figured out who are your key partners, activities, and resources to deliver your value proposition to your core customer segments, the relationships and channels you use. And then we've also looked at, well, what's the value you create? So value you create, problems you solve, needs you satisfy. We've looked at the value proposition canvas and how that your basically your products or services or skills, how they align to your customers' pains. And we've started to look at your competition and who it is that you're competing with, what are the different channels you have access to, etc. But what matters more than anything is deep diving in on goals today. So we're going to take everything that you've done and feed that into your goals. Specifically, we're going to start thinking about what your 10-year goals are, your 3 or 5-year goals, 12-month goals, quarterly objectives, and then I'll take you through setting a goal into your future. And so that's using a really cool NLP technique where we look at creating a picture of one of your goals, whether it's a short-term or long-term thing, creating an image in your mind and shooting that out into your timeline to create tension towards what you want. And so that's what we're going to cover in today's session. Like always, I'll talk through the questions and the activities, and then at the end, I'll cut the video off and we'll go into the coaching side of things. And so if at any point you want to pause, you can to do this on your own if you're at, online and trying to repeat the process. So there's this thing in the business world called the BHAG, or Big Hairy Audacious Goal, by James Collins and Jerry Pararis. I like the BHAG. There's an amazing book on it. You should definitely check it out. I just KISS principle, right? 10-year goals. It's out into the future. It should have some relationship between your values, your purpose, and your vision. And the questions you want to ask yourself when you're thinking about what's my 10-year goal is, what am I scared to go after? What would be so big and amazing that if you made it happen, you would just be blown away? Something so big that if you failed and were to fall short, you'd still have the most amazing outcome ever. And so think about what's going to fulfill you until you die. Like what are the things that I need to do between now and the next 10 years that would just keep fulfilling me? The other question you might want to ask, what would make every day a happy day regardless of the shit? It doesn't matter whether you're living your purpose, not living your purpose, things are amazing or bad, whatever's going on in life, with the good comes a shit day. And even when you've got a shit day with no motivation, what would you be doing that would still bring you joy, even if you're in the shit? And if you're really logical and you've already thought this through, just answer the question, what do you want to be doing 10 years from now? And it's just about brainstorming, looking at your values, your purpose, your vision, your legacy, and say, hey, what do I want to be doing? And so when we get into it, we'll start asking these questions and we'll start thinking through what are those 10-year goals. 10-year goals in the business world, there's this thing called the 3HAG, the 3-year hairy audacious goal. And so again, another great book to go check out if you're thinking business, if you're thinking 3HAG, great. I also just love the simple 3-year goal, 5-year goal. What am I going to have then? And this is where your legacy, your vision, your purpose, they feed into your 10 years, but your 3 years should be a decomposition of those 10-year goals. So, you know, if you want to get X in 10 years, well, then your 3-year goals should have some connection to your 10 years. And you're going to see that theme as we go through this process. 10 years decomposes into 3, 3 years into 1, 1 into quarterly, and so on. And so the types of questions you're going to want to ask yourself for your 3-year goal is, what will you have done to make sure you get your 10-year goal? Who will be there? What will you see? What will you feel? What will you have completed when you get there? What's the work you'll be doing? What will you be able to do? If you know what you're able to do, that can start to inform what you have to do to get there. What will you have changed in your business or career or the company you work for? And what will you as an individual or the business you work for or the company you create, what will you have achieved? So these different lenses start to give you the bigger picture of your goals. And then once we have those bigger picture of your goals, we can then start turning them into some actions. And where we start to see our first big set of actions is when we talk about the 12-month goals. And so really what you're doing with your 12-month goals is you're looking at your things you want to achieve in 3 years. You pick the one that you already have the resources, knowledge, and ability, or just a bit of learning to do to achieve. And then you say, well, this is what I'm going to focus on in this next 12 months. And you start thinking about, what do you think you're going to achieve in the next 12 months that's going to get you to that 3-year goal? What has to happen in your career to get your 3 and 10-year goal? Which one of those things are you going after first? And you're going to want to ask the question, what are the practical activities that will have to be completed? What are the things you have to do in the next 12 months to make a 3-year goal happen? And the other key thing is some sort of measure. So what are the measures that will let you know you're on track? Whether that's completing a course, whether that's hitting a weight milestone, whether that's changing jobs and you've seen you've got a new job. It could be a financial milestone, could be anything, but some sort of measure. We then decompose your 12-month goals into quarterly objectives. And so what are you going to practically do in the next 3 months? Who will you have to go see? What people do you have to connect with? Who do you have to create new relationships with? What activities are you going to do in the next 3 months that gets you a step closer? And these things, these steps, these smaller goals, trace all the way back up to your legacy. And that's how we start making the success framework begin to work together. Then the last thing we're going to do is something just for the coaching side of stuff. So, you know, once we finish this session, I'll do this work out of the recording, where we identify your timeline. And so, like, literally, if you think about the future and you were to point to the future, for me, it's out in front of me. That's, you know, where your future is. And if I think about the past, might point behind me. And so that's conceptually how I perceive time. And so, you know, I'll talk you through how to identify your timeline. Then we look at, okay, how do you write a goal to be specific, measurable, all that sort of stuff. It's a neurolinguistic programming spin on a SMART goal. And so you'll see parallels between them. We'll VAK, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, your goal. So we create a picture of your goal. You look at the pictures, the sounds, the feelings. You create an image in your mind. You take that out into your future, and that creates tension towards that goal in your unconscious. So it's basically using the power of your brain to create tension towards your goal. And so that's an activity that we'll do at the end of setting our goals. And so some of the types of things that go into writing a really good goal is state in the positive what specifically you want, identify in the present situation and be associated in it. So where are you now in relation to your goal? Clarify what you want with your senses, the VAC stuff. So what will you see, hear, feel, taste, or smell when you have it? We then say, well, what's the evidence procedure? How will you know when you have it? You know, so how will I know when I'm living my goal of, you know, working with passionate people daily? Well, you know, maybe the evidence is I can see a recording of me having a conversation with a customer online. Maybe it's something like that. What's the evidence that let you know you have your goal? You have to make sure your goals are congruent. Is this outcome good for you? What does it get you? What does it allow you to do? It has to be in line with your values. That's why we do your values, to understand, and your why, basically, to understand why you're here. It has to be self-initiated. So there's no point in having a goal that requires someone else offering me a job. It has to be something you start. Has to be something for you. There's no point in creating a goal that's for someone else. So, you know, I'm quitting smoking for my wife. Well, that's, you know, that's not for you. So you're never going to have the internal drive to actually make it happen. And it's about putting it into context. So where, when, how, and with whom do you want to realize this goal? And the next key part when we start writing goals, and we'll only probably do this for one or two of them, and really that'll give you the template for doing it. You need to answer the question, what do you have now? And what do you need to get your goal? Have you ever had or done this before? Because if you have a measure of having completed some or all of it, it makes it easier to achieve it. Do you know anyone that has done it? Can you go talk to them? And can you act right now as if you've already completed it? And that puts you into the state of acting as if you already have it. Ecology and congruence. So making sure something is congruent. It's not just as easy as saying, hey, am I congruent with this goal? You can ask these questions, also known as questions. For what purpose do you want it? What will you gain or lose if you have it? And then using what's called Cartesian logic, which is from neurolinguistic programming. What will happen if you get it? What won't happen if you get it? What will happen if you don't get it? And what won't happen if you don't get it? Forcing you to look at your goal from every different angle and just to make sure you haven't missed anything. And then we get into basically writing your goal summary, which is something that's stated in the positive. You initiate it, you associate into the end step, dissociate from the end picture, confirm ecology, realize there's more than one way to get it, make the end step realistic, and make sure the outcome increases your choice. And again, this is an NLP thing. If you look up SMART, you know, SMART's got its own acronym. NLP does too, which is create. So clear and concise, realistic, ecological, as now, towards what you want. End step, evidence procedure, which basically sums up everything I've just talked there about setting a goal into your future. And then it's about a succinct statement that represents the picture in your mind. And it's about being specific and saying, it is now the 21st of June, 2023. I am, or I have, the end step of your goal. And that's the thing that we take and throw into your future, which is the last thing we're going to do in the session today. And so that's basically how you take your why and your what from the success framework into your 10-year, 3-year, 12-month and quarterly goals, and how you turn some of those goals into basically, my opinion, one of the best goal templates and getting it into your future so you genuinely create some tension towards it. And so if you are playing from home, if you're watching this as a video as opposed to participating in the coaching, or you want to do some homework, if you were willing to spend some time, so treat this as homework, you write your name, you state your purpose, you state your values, you define your dream of what you do when spending in working hours. You might state, to get there in the next 3 years, I will need to X, Y, and Z. To make that work in the next 12 months, I should. In the next 3 months, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to get my 12-month goal. And so you can use this sort of little story writing method if you are more of a creative that likes to write the story. What we're about to do is go through and look at the 10-year goals and break everything down. And as always, the question is, do you want to become CEO of your career? And if so, the journey continues after this, where we start looking at strategies and tactics and basically identifying the core things that you need to do to make all of this become a reality in a practical sense. Your goals are your signposts, your strategies and tactics will help inform some of the doing. And I'm going to pause the video there and then jump into the offline stuff and talk to whoever's talking next.